There are 4 different foreign policy grand strategies that the United States can choose to take: isolationism, offshore balancing, selective engagement, and liberal hegemony. So let's start with isolationism, and we already know how unlikely this strategy is nowadays. The logic behind isolationism is that the United States should not be drawn into conflicts around the world that are not related to the territorial self-defense of the United States. And this was actually a very popular perspective in the United States until the 1930s. Part of the argument in favor is that the United States is located in a very good geographical region because it is surrounded by 2 oceans and 2 borders with much weaker countries, and because it is very hard for other great powers to cross those oceans all the way from other parts of the world and attack the United States, the US is then considered to be in a very secure position. And on top of that, when you combine this with a country having thousands of nuclear weapons, then it is possible to see the logic behind it. The second strategy is offshore balancing, and this strategy focuses on the 3 areas of the world that matter the most, which are Northeast Asia, Europe, and the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf because that's where the oil is, and Europe and Northeast Asia because that's where the other 2 great powers are, Russia and China. So these are the 3 areas that Americans should focus and be considered to fight in. The idea behind offshore balancing is to become the strongest power in the American continent, so this way there's no other country that will want to attack you, because they will not be able to win a war against you. At the same time, in those regions of the world that matter, the idea is to maintain a balance of power between those great powers and the other regional powers by creating alliances and providing military aid to those regional powers. This way, if another great power becomes too strong, it can be balanced by the other regional powers, and this is done in order to prevent that great power from becoming a global hegemon. So basically, it's passing the responsibility to get involved militarily to the other local powers first, and the US only gets involved with its own military if that balance of power will break, and also when it is likely that the other great power will become a hegemon and will dominate that whole geographical region. So basically, the goal is to become the regional hegemon, so the US becomes the hegemon in its own region, the American continent, and it tries to prevent other countries to become hegemons in the other parts of the world that matter. It does this by creating a balance of power between those great powers and the other regional powers. So this way, you have a double layer of security, because you are the strongest country in your own continent, which means that other countries will not want to attack you, because if they attack you, they will lose the war, while at the same time the other great powers that might become peer competitors can be balanced first by the regional powers in their neighborhoods. So that way, you only have to get involved if it's absolutely necessary. The third strategy is selective engagement, which also recognizes the same 3 areas of the world that matter the most strategically. But the difference is that while the job of offshore balancing is to deal with a potential hegemon, the job of selective engagement is to be in the region with the goal of keeping the peace. So this is not only to deal with a potential hegemon, but also to keep the peace in the region. So in this case, the United States is willing to engage in order to maintain great power peace, to prevent terrorism with weapons of mass destruction, to secure the supply of oil, while also to pursue other liberal goals like the promotion of democracy, free markets, human rights, and international openness. So this one goes a level above offshore balancing and adds more goals where the United States can intervene. The fourth strategy is liberal hegemony, and in this strategy there are no 3 main areas of the world that matter, but instead all areas of the world are important, and it is willing to use military force everywhere. So this is basically the strategy behind being the world police, where it sees itself as the indispensable nation with a responsibility to run the world and make it in its own image. And this is because it believes that peace can be achieved if every country adopts the same values and the same ideas of the US domestic political system. So it sponsors human rights, democracy, capitalism, rule of law, It's in favor of regime change, individual rights, and international organizations around the world. So it believes that most of humanity shares these American values, and therefore it will be an easy task to fulfill. However, this policy of liberal hegemony can sometimes be counterproductive, because countries don't like it when another country interferes with their internal matters. Those countries are concerned with protecting their own sovereignty, their own national interest, their national security, as well as their position in the geopolitical balance of power, and they might even go to war to defend them. So these are the 4 grand foreign policy strategies of the United States. So feel free to agree with some or disagree with others, and let me know in the comments which strategy do you think is the best one.